So, but now it'll be on something.
Right.
So yeah, so like, I don't know why I should talk.
No, just keep talking about
mission change. So like, about 14 or 15 years ago, we had an LGBTQ advisor who was only working like fewer than 10 hours a week, like even less than the amount of hours that Leah works now, like way less. You know, part-time, low wages, like just not a lot of funding for programming and stuff. And so the LGBTQ advisor quit because 14 or 15 years ago because she was just so overwhelmed and just did not have the resources to advise this group of students, right? And she made that public that that's why she was quitting, was because she felt like she could not do her job.
Oh, wow.
And she could not support, you know, all of these students with the lack of support she was getting, right? So then Mission Change was an ad hoc group formed to address the lack of a queer advisor, an LGBTQ advisor. So they started campaigning that year after she quit for a full-time advisor, right? Obviously, we still don't have that.
Because Leah's not
No, she's not full-time. I forgot how many hours. I think it's like 15 hours that she gets, and then she volunteers extra hours.
Okay.
But so, and I think the office has slightly more money, funding and support, but not a lot more. And so we've had a lot of different LGBTQ advisors come in and out of Wellesley since then, but you know, and this was 14, 15 years ago, right? They created this ad hoc group, but it never saw success, right? And then for a while, it just became disbanded because everyone was like, well, we can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean,
So that was the primary, that was the primary goal of Mission Change, was to get a full-time advisor, but they did other advocacy work. So then there was a revival of Mission Change my sophomore year. It was like a huge revival where a couple of students decided they were going to take this up again and advocate for a full-time advisor, especially because that was when Leah was just coming in, or right before Leah was coming in. So it was a perfect time, right, to be like, oh, since we're getting a new advisor, can we get a full-time one this time?
Yeah.
Right, with benefits, etc., and have more funding for the office. But so I joined my sophomore year, and we did a lot of stuff that wasn't just focused on the full-time advisor. Like we had a petition for queer studies, which is now happening again, right? So
This happens so many times.
It happens over and over again. So we had a petition, and we had like a movement going for queer studies. And we had the full-time advisor. Those were like our two biggest things. But just general queer advocacy, LGBTQ, like especially we were trying to get more support for the T in LGBTQ and our, trans community and gender non-conforming community, right? And so
is that why now they're siblings?
No, siblings actually I think came out of an org that used to be called Brothers.
Okay.
It's been around for a long time, like since way before I got here. And it used to be like a secret group and stuff, first class, and we used to have meetings and stuff. It was a closed, safe space group, obviously, as it should be. But and then I think that evolved into siblings. I'm not quite sure about the history of siblings, because I'm not in it. But yeah, so we were doing some organizing around that, and then the head of Mission Change, Claire Fogarty, she emailed Kim Bottomley and was like, we want to have a meeting about like queer resources and like LGBTQ students on this campus and like the experiences that we have, right? And so then K-Bot was like, yeah, sure. And so we, as Mission Change, we like spread the news and we invited everyone basically. We were like, LGBTQ and allies, please come to the meeting. And we had a packed room.
That's so
like, it was pretty great.
That's good though.
Yeah.
Then you feel like you have to like deliver something.
Yeah, it was
you
pretty
can't
packed
ignore
room.
a crowd of people like that.
Yeah, and it was like some of us were at the table with K-Bot and then people were like standing around and like sitting and stuff. And she comes in and there's like this mob of queers and like
It's like cute mafia.
Yeah, exactly. And so she was like, she basically, it was actually kind of hilarious. She was pretty basic. She was like,
basic.
Yeah. Pretty much just like, so what are your struggles?
Oh.
And we were like, okay, well.
Here's the list.
Exactly. And then she was like, I just don't understand why your community isn't visible. She was like, other minorities are much more visible. Like, for example, they have culture shows. So I know that they're here, but I just don't know about you. And you're just like not visible.
Because they're not, people don't accept, like, it's because, like,
And it's also like intersections, please.
Or
People might not
racially
know.
blind.
Yeah.
well, also, like, it's just hard to, like, be like, who's a queer person?
Right, exactly. So Seema, my friend Seema, actually got up and she was like, so that's okay. So everyone, she said it and everyone was like,
Honey.
and then some people were like, so do you want us to walk around wearing rainbows?
That's what I was thinking, like, a rainbow, I had the rainbow,
And she
rainbow
said that,
thing.
she was like, I think the idea of like a rainbow stroller at graduation, that's just so nice. And so I wanted to be like, some people's families are not gonna be like
So
it.
only the out queers whose families accept them
Yeah.
would be
And so
like
then-
wearing the
and
rainbow
then-
still.
In addition, so that happened, and then Seema gets up and she's like, you can tell I'm not white by looking at me. And she's like, but you cannot tell my sexual orientation by looking at me. She's like, so it's really hard for you to sit here and say that, the LGBTQ community isn't visible.
You'd be like,
It's
hey,
just
look, you're queer. Aren't you
Yeah,
queer too?
exactly. So
We can tell.
So that was the biggest thing that came out of that meeting. It's like what people remember from that meeting. Like if you got someone who's there, they'll be like,
That's
that
unfortunate.
situation.
Yeah.
But then, so then basically she was like, well, I'm a science person and I like facts and data, so I need you to show me in comparison to our peer institutions, what are their resources like for LGBTQ students? And we were like, oh, we did that.
Yeah.
Like you should have seen that already.
It's been on your desk.
Yeah,
before.
exactly. And then she's like, well, what about the students here? Like, I need data about that. And we're like, there was a survey done in 2009 and another one done recently. Like, you have that too. Like, we have these things. We have these data, right? And she's like, oh, okay, that's good. She was like, keep getting more data. That's, what she really said coming out of it. And she's like, and try to, be more visible. Like, wear the stoles and wear all this stuff. And we were just like, that's cute. And then we left that meeting really with nothing accomplished. I mean, the fact that we had a meeting was pretty great. Like, that was an accomplishment in itself. And then the fact that we were able to, like, voice some of those concerns, etc. And so that was great. But in terms of any follow-up after that, there was none.
I think we need to, well, not we, because I'm not going to say, like, I identify, but I'm saying in terms of, like, action on campus, I think she's trying to, like, again, make us complacent by saying, where's the data? Like, we need to just keep doing that, and then eventually something will happen. Well, who's going to make it happen? I think we need to just start demanding things and not just say,
It's also the
not
idea
let
that,
them
like,
make the decision. And you need to be making decisions and, like, figuring out, like, how we can be, get into those places of power that we can actually.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why the letter, that's why I
yeah.
wrote the letter, because that was, I knew, I've been here for 4 years now, like, I knew that they were never gonna give us anything, right? And even with the letter, like, that's playing the game too. Like, it's
Just very
understanding.
properly. Like,
Yeah, and it's understanding, like, we're getting a meeting with them, okay, and at the meeting we're gonna say the same thing, right? But it's just about demanding and about not being afraid to say, I demand this. But at the same time, you need to work outside of that too, and you have to have both tactics. It can't just be,
Yes.
It's like if you,
fully in the system. You have to come outside the system too and, like, put pressure on the system to give in.
And, like, get it circulating around campus.
And it was
like
just
that,
hard.
and
It was hard
talk
that,
about it and know what's going on.
the LGBTQ meeting was hard because, after that, people kind of lost interest in mission change. People graduated, whatever, and, there was only, like, a few of us in mission change to begin with. So then the next year, we came back to campus, and mission change was just not a thing anymore. Yeah, it was hard. I mean, but at the same time, I think I'm seeing a lot of what Mission Change was working on then kind of pick up steam again in terms of, like, the queer studies group is trying to do that, and, like,
I kind of wonder, like, what could be done on the outside of it to say, like, yeah, like, I always kind of say, like, you can't wait on that person up there to give it to you. Like, like, what else can be done outside of it? Not as like long-term solution, but as kind of like a remedy in between. But I mean, because that's the big thing about it. It's like even doing the rallying, like doing the petitioning is exhausting.
it's so exhausting.
Like, we
and
need
that's
a
the
way to
thing.
survive.
We
Also
don't
here
talk about
too.
that too, about the strain and, like, how much it it's asking of us as students to do all those things. And yeah, it's super important, you know, like it's really important to do those, but it's also important to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And even just taking care of yourself can be an act of resistance.
And that's
At an
exactly what
institution like
Diamond Sharp, when she was talking about how like when she was like going to be mad, people tell her they're like, you know, like this is like an academic strain. Like, you're gonna strain yourself. Like people like their grades go down. She was like, no, I'm not about that. She was like, cause she was just like in the end like, I'm a Wellesley student. Like I have to get like this degree. I have to like I can't have my grades be slipping. Like 'cause in the end it's sad. Like you do want to help and you are passionate about your school, but in the end like you have to get a job. You have to like there's just, like,
And you
it's
have to
just
be
so
healthy.
You have to
like,
be healthy,
yeah,
mentally healthy. You gotta have mental health
and
problems. Like
physically healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, like you
It's
can't
like-
help your peers, you can't help your family, you can't help really anyone if you don't take care of yourself first.
Exactly. Yeah. Speaking of homework, sleep,
Yeah.
homework, sleep.
Agreed.
homework, sleep.
Yeah, what is sleep?
Thank you, Silvia.
Right.
Yeah, thank you very
inviting me.
much.
This is really fun.
Thank you.
Now as I watch everyone.
Yeah,
Silvia.
Lisa, you'll